Alright, guys, so this was the other fanfiction idea that was a poll over on my Patreon, and that was basically to ask, like, what... Because I really enjoyed my adventures with... doing the My Adventures with Batman, and then the other one with Wonder Woman, basically making this incarnation of the other DC characters in the My Adventures with Superman universe. So I did it. So rather than just randomly pick one, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do one with... I'm just going to do one as a poll. And this one, this one kind of won by, like, a landslide, really. Like, it kind of got close towards the end, but no, this one ran away with it, pun intended, because this time around we're going My Adventures with the Flash. So, yeah. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense that Barry's next on the list. Barry would be the next logical character on that list. So let's get started with this story. So in this story, what happens is that Clark, Jimmy, and Lois are sent on a... they are basically, because this takes place after the first two stories of Batman and Wonder Woman, they're now, like, there's emerging metahumans. Superman has basically opened a beacon. It seems like he's basically opened the door for a new age of superhero, like a new age of heroes. And curious about that, there's been now the sighting of a fourth metahuman that has been seen in Central City. So in order to get the drop on this, Perry has sent Clark, Lois, and Jimmy to Central City and to get a image of this red blur that keeps running around the city. So they go there, and Clark's kind of like, this is really cool. Like, I have met, Bruce was really cool. Diana was really cool. I can't wait to meet this, I can't wait to meet another metahuman. And he's still, like, thinking, man, did I really, like, open the door for this age of heroes? Is that why everyone's coming out of the shadows now? I mean, Bruce said he'd been working for over a year in the shadows, but now people, like, know he's out there. So, could it be that I'm, like, really opening the door for these heroes? Like, am I giving them, the opportunity to go out into the world and show themselves? And, yeah. And who knows who else is out there? Like, who really knows who else is out there? But for right now, Lois is like, hey, Clark, I love you, but, like, let's stay on the task at hand. So when they arrive at Central City, they are greeted by the Central City News, and they're greeted by Linda Park, by a younger Linda Park. And by younger, I mean, like, she's around 15, and she's like, I'm doing a young internship for there, and they said I had to show you around. So, yeah. She also, she's talking to all of them, so he's like, so you guys are from the same city as you guys are from Metropolis, right? And, your Superman's cool, but he's not Flash cool. And they're like, the Flash? Is that what you're calling the red blur? And they're like, yeah. He's like, has anyone seen the Flash? No, he just shows up in a flash, and the name just stuck. We coined the term the Flash because, he just shows up in a flash and then he leaves. And they're like, and Clark is like, aren't you scared of what he can do if he's just, like, moving? Is he a teleporter? But aren't you scared of someone like that? And he's like, no. Dude comes in and why would we be scared? Like, the people of Central City have always been like, why should we be scared of a guy who wants to protect us from literally getting killed on a daily basis? Like, why do you, what makes you think that, like, we would be scared of someone who would do that? Isn't Metropolis all about Superman? Like, aren't you guys all about, aren't you all about your Superman too? So we're all about our Flash. And Clark's just kind of like, because he still remembers the multiverse Superman thing that happened. So but Metropolis is still getting used to him and being like, yeah, Superman's really cool, but there's still people who need convincing in Metropolis. However, in Central City, it's a different story. Like, they are all on board with the Flash. They are all on board with this Flash guy. Just comes in, fixes everything, runs out. So while that's going on, Linda's young boyfriend shows up, and that's Wally West. And Wally isn't now, for reference, Wally isn't Kid Flash yet. So, but he is dating Linda at this young age. That's the difference here in this universe. And he's there with his Aunt Iris. And Wally's just like, oh, cool, you guys are, I followed Jimmy's blog. I followed Flamebird's vlog. I was a follower on that. Did you guys really see Bigfoot? And he's like, yeah, we did. Turns out it was a talking gorilla. Nice. So Wally's all about, like, meeting Superman and, talking to him, and he's like, my Uncle Barry is, my Uncle Barry's like Superman. Like, he thinks he's really cool. Personally, I think the Flash is cooler. And he's like, but you don't even know what the Flash looks like. And Wally's just like, yeah, totally. I don't know what he looks like. Iris is like, shut up. So Lois instantly gets curious about that. Like, she gets curious about that little moment. Meanwhile, Clark is like, I think I'm gonna go look for this Flash to begin with, on my own, but not as Clark Kent. I'm gonna go look for him as Superman. I mean, dressing up in this costume got Bruce and Diana's attention, so why wouldn't it get this the Flash's attention? So Clark flies out, and he flies out and uses his supervision, and all he sees is just a red blur, and it's moving so fast, his supervision is having trouble, like, pinning down. And he's like, how fast is this guy? I mean, I thought I was fast, but this guy's moving at a speed that even I can't calculate. So he's trying to, like, catch up to him, and Clark is, like, still, like, still training. So even then, he's still having trouble with the Flash, keeping up with the Flash, until Barry, like, suddenly stops and goes, so, you tired yet? Because I could do this all day. And he's like, hi, I'm Superman. And he's like, yeah, cool, I'm the Flash. Nice to meet you. So, and he's like, so what brings you to Central City? And he's like, well, it's because of you. I've met other people like us. I met Batman, have you heard of Batman and Wonder Woman? And he's like, I've heard, and he's like, wait, Batman's real? Like, are you kidding me? Batman is an actual real thing? I know about Wonder Woman. Like, I knew she was real. She's been on those talk shows. But, like, Batman's real? Oh my god, Batman's real. Wait till Hal hears this. And he's like, who's Hal? Don't worry about it. So they're, like, talking back and forth. So they have a conversation, and Clark is like, he doesn't say my name's Clark Kent and all that. He just says, like, I'm Superman. So what gave you your powers? I mean, what made you you? Is all you can do is run? And he's like, all I can do is run. Yeah, that's all I can do right now. But Barry explains that, like, he got his powers from an accident. He was working in forensics. Lightning bolt hit him while he was working with chemicals, gave him his superpowers, and he's like, I wanted to protect people. I've always, Barry brings up the whole thing is, like, when I was younger, my mom was killed and my dad was framed for the murder, and that's why I worked in forensics for so long, because I wanted to prove his innocence. And he's like, did you? And this is where the divergence is in this continuity, is where he's like, no, I wasn't fast enough to prove my father's innocence, and they sentenced him to death. So yeah, this continuity, Barry's dad doesn't get released from prison. He actually got sentenced to death while Barry was in college, studying to work in forensics. His dad got executed. And he always had, like, a stigma, like, there's always been a stigma to the Allen name ever since the murder of his mom. So Barry's kind of like, people in the Central City PD, like cops and other forensics, kind of give Barry the side eye because he's the son of a murderer to them. But Barry's convinced that, like, he saw something that he couldn't explain, and he wants to, fix it. But he always also believes, since he got these powers, he wants to make sure that no other child loses their parent ever again. So that's why he runs around. That's why he's, and he's like, so that's why you're the Flash. And he's like, I didn't want to call myself that, but I kind of like, it's stuck. Like, it's kind of stuck in it. And honestly, I'm getting used to the name. So while Barry and, while Flash and Superman are meeting and talking, Jimmy and Lois are offered, instead of going to a hotel, Iris offers them a place to stay at her house. And it's kind of a big house to begin with. And they basically, are hanging out, and Lois is Iris asks Lois, so you and Clark, huh? I take it you guys are dating? He's like, oh, yeah, we're dating. And he's like, I get it. He's like, my husband Barry, we just got married. In here, Barry and him got married, about a year ago. And and after that, that's when he got his powers. So in this continuity, how I have it is that Barry and Iris got married the year before he got his powers. Then, in this year alone, because the Flash in here has only been around for 6 months, Barry got his powers, and not only that, the family knows. Instead of, hide it from him, he actually, literally ran home, because he, in the story I would have is that, Barry panicked when he got the powers, because he thought he fucking died, so he ran home, and that's when he realized, oh my god, I just ran, something that would take me a 30-minute drive in less than 30 seconds. And Iris was right there to see it, and he explains, the power, what happened, and Iris was like, no, and he's like, I think I got these powers for a reason. So Iris actually supported him, and actually helped make the costume with him. It wasn't only that, but Wally knows. Wally was there also, because they're all living under the same roof. I would also have that in here, kind of reference the New 52, that Wally's dad, Daniel, was kind of an asshole. Now, this isn't the African-American Wally West I want to preference. This is the Wally West we know. He's just younger. There is the other Wally West out there, and I want to say that, he's not Kid Flash yet. The other one, the New 52 Wally West, isn't here. He is... he's out in Keystone City. He's living in Keystone City for a bit. Again, for all the other... another reference to Wally West lore. So, eventually it all comes out, and Iris reveals that, yeah, my husband Barry is the Flash. I was the one who... I was the one who convinced him... he wanted to be a superhero, and I convinced him, and... Yeah, and that's when Lois stops everything and just goes, Clark's Superman, and Jimmy's like, what are you doing? Why did you just tell him that? And she's like, she just told us her husband's the Flash. We should do the same and tell her tell her the truth that Clark is Superman. And they're like, oh. Barry's been, and Iris doesn't bat an eye, and Iris is just like, oh, it's kind of, it's nice for Barry to have someone out there with him. He was afraid for the longest time that he would be the only one out there, but when Superman showed himself, that's what really inspired him to go out in the world. And in fact, over with Clark and Barry, it was Barry who said, there was a hot minute where I was just going to hide my powers and try to find a way to cure myself. But then I saw you. I saw you out there fighting Ivo and that parasite monster, and that inspired me to be the Flash. And my wife supported it, and she's like, wait, your wife knows? He's like, yeah, my wife Iris knows. She's like, so he tells that end of the story. So Barry and Clark become friends. Meanwhile, now we get to the main meat of the story. Someone has been going around, and Barry explains, maybe you can help me with something. For the longest time, Barry has been one step behind a new villain that's been running around. Now, keep in mind, he's only been the Flash for the first 6 months, so he's only been stopping disasters and regular criminals. But there's someone new out there, and someone who's good. This guy has a criminal record, and knows how to get away with it, even though he's not he doesn't run the same speed. He just knows how to time the Flash. He's like gotten so good, he's timed when the Flash can get from point A to point B, and that's how he commits his robberies. And not only that, the people who get in his way get frozen. That's right, people. This is Captain Cold. So Captain Cold in here is still Leonard Snart. But in here, he was the one who he found a facility, he broke into a facility that was experimenting with Kryptonian tech, and this one was meant to use modified sub-zero temperature. With it, he built it, he basically took the technology, made it into the cold gun, and took it apart and rebuilt it so many times till he could figure out how to make it. And now took on the identity. He's like, if there's a Flash, then there can be a new villain, and he called himself Captain Cold. And he's like, the other people around him, his crew who don't have the technology, yeah, they're the rogues. They're going to be eventually the rogues. Like, so Mick actually says, so why do you call yourself Captain Cold? And he goes, because I'm the captain of this operation, I'm cold. What the hell do you want? What else do you want me to say, Mick? So at this point, the rogues are starting. It's only right now Captain Cold, but the rest of the rogues are his crew and his henchmen. But he does respect them and give them a lot of of the cut. But they do follow the rules. No drugs, no killing women and children. Only kill cops when they're on, when they fire on you. But the Flash has made things harder for them. So Leonard has been, timing and watching the Flash and timing when he gets from point A to point B so they can commit their robberies. So that's how Cold has been one step ahead of the Flash. So here, their next big score isn't another bank robbery. Instead, Mick is just Mick says to Leonard, dude, if we get caught by the Flash and you fight him, now there's reports of Superman. You could probably take on the Flash with that cold gun, but what happens when Superman shows up? You need backup. And he's like, you're right. So how about we break into another facility and get our tech? So that's what happens is they break into another military complex, and this time they steal even more of the technology. And that's when Flash and Superman show up, and he's like, so you're Captain Cold, huh? And he's like, and you're the Flash, and I was counting on running into you. Big Blue, on the other hand, I wasn't, but here we go. So they fight. Captain Cold does get overwhelmed by Superman, but that's when a blast of fire comes in, and he's like, and Mick comes in and he's like, forecast, there's a heat wave going on. And Barry goes, lame, shut up. And yeah, so that's how we get the rogues in here, is that the rogues steal alien technology and modify it to their liking, they mod it, because they don't just steal it and use as is, they just mod it to their own specifications, and that's how they become the rogues. So in here we get, of course, the typical crew. Heatwave, Trickster, and Weather Wizard, and Captain Boomerang. So that's the crew in here. So all of them get technology, and now it's it's 5 on 2. And even though Superman is all powerful, he's still he's not gonna kill people. He's not that. But yeah, eventually they overcome it by Flash actually running around the rogues until he sucks out the oxygen in the room and actually incapacitates them while they're all trying to gang up on Superman. So they all get knocked out. They get taken away, if this was an episode, at the end of it, what happens is Leonard breaks everyone out by just hiding a little picklock under his tongue, and they break out, and the rogues are free in Central City. So now there's supervillains to combat the Flash. So by the end of it, Lois and Jimmy have their little side story with Iris, and Iris telling Lois that, if since Clark is Superman, I know you're probably thinking that he's larger than life, but he needs you. Barry needed me when he first became the Flash. You matter to him. You are his rock. You need. He's. He can be Superman to them, but to you, he needs to be Clark. So that's how they. So that's that kind of story. So that's the side story for that. Anyway. So they leave Central City and talk about you know, how are we going to explain this to Barry? And I mean, not Barry. How are we going to explain this to Perry? And Clark is like, oh, let's just call it My Adventure, you know, Superman's Adventures with the Flash. And then it gets rewritten as My Adventures with the Flash. So there you go, guys. There's the story. So, yeah. This one was a lot of fun. I kind of figured when I put Flash on the poll that he was going to win. But still, this was pretty fun. So, yeah. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for voting on Patreon for this. And like I said, if you'd like to have... like to be a part of the Patreon polls, just hit the link below and head on over there. Hit the first tier. That'll give you the access to the polls as well as the movie reviews. But yeah, and other than that, what did you guys think of this story? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.